Every single summer for 2 weeks, some of the most powerful men on earth vanish. Not on vacation, not on business trips. They disappear into a forest in Northern California, behind a locked gate, past armed guards, past no-fly restrictions overhead, and nobody is allowed to follow them in. Former presidents have gone there, world-famous actors, billionaires who run the global economy. Even people who later became the most powerful men in the world walked through those gates long before anyone knew their names. And every single one of them has agreed to the same rule. What happens inside stays inside. So what is this place? Why does it demand secrecy on a level usually reserved for military intelligence? And why, decade after decade, do the most famous and powerful people on the planet keep coming back? Stay with me because by the end of this video, you're going to look at fame, power, and Hollywood completely differently. Let's start with the name because it sounds almost too ordinary to hide something extraordinary. Bohemian Grove. Tucked into 2,700 acres of ancient redwood forest along the Russian River, Bohemian Grove has existed since 1872. On paper, it's simply the summer retreat of the Bohemian Club, a private San Francisco gentlemen's club. That's the official story. Harmless, almost boring. But here's what they don't want you to focus on: the guest list. Multiple U.S. presidents have been photographed there. Richard Nixon was caught on tape, recorded discussing Bohemian Grove and calling it, quote, the most faggy goddamn thing you could imagine, while still admitting he attended and needed to keep attending for political reasons. Ronald Reagan was a member. So was Herbert Hoover. Business leaders who control trillion-dollar industries show up every year like clockwork. Think about that for a second. These are men who could be anywhere on Earth. Private islands, yachts, palaces. And instead, every July, they choose a forest. With rules, with secrecy, with a 2-week schedule they treat like a sacred obligation. Why? This is where it gets strange. In 2000, a journalist named Alex Jones did something almost nobody had managed before. He snuck a camera into the grove during one of its most secretive rituals. What he filmed would go on to be watched by millions, and it's the closest thing the public has to real, visual evidence of what actually happens behind that gate. The footage shows men in red, black, and silver robes gathered at the base of a 40-foot stone owl statue, illuminated by torchlight, standing over a lake at midnight. An owl. Not a cross, not a flag, an owl. The ancient symbol some cultures associate with wisdom and others associate with something far older and far darker. Secret knowledge, hidden power, watchfulness in the dark. The ceremony itself has a name: the cremation of care. Robed figures perform a ritual where a symbolic effigy, representing dull care, meaning stress, conscience, worldly burdens, is set on fire at the feet of the giant owl. Chanting, fire, robes. A ceremony practiced, according to club records, since 1881. Now, the club insists this is theater, a quirky, dramatic tradition no different than a fraternity initiation or a lodge ceremony. Nothing supernatural, nothing sinister. But ask yourself this: if it's just theater, why has almost no unauthorized footage ever escaped in over 150 years? Why is the surrounding area patrolled with a security budget that rivals small nations? Why do members face social and professional consequences for even confirming they attended? You don't guard harmless theater like a state secret, unless there's something else happening in that forest that the theater is designed to distract you from. Let's talk about who actually goes there, because this is where celebrities enter the story. For decades, rumors have circulated about entertainers, musicians, and public figures being invited into these circles. Not as members necessarily, but as guests, performers, or honored attendees at exclusive gatherings connected to this same elite network. Reports describe private concerts inside the Grove featuring internationally famous musicians, performing for an audience the public will never be shown. And here's the pattern that keeps showing up if you look closely at entertainment history. Certain public figures go quiet for a short, unexplained period and re-emerge shortly after with a sudden and dramatic career acceleration. A new contract, a surprising award, a high-profile endorsement, a political appointment that seemingly comes out of nowhere. Coincidence? Maybe. Career timing is unpredictable, and Hollywood runs on unpredictable momentum. But conspiracy researchers point to something they call the initiation theory. The idea that gatherings like Bohemian Grove function as informal networking hubs where the people who already control industries, media, and capital quietly decide who gets the next opportunity. Not through a vote, not through an announcement, through a handshake in a forest that nobody photographed. If that's true, it would explain something that has puzzled outsiders for a century. How do so many completely unconnected industries, politics, entertainment, finance, media, keep producing the same recurring names at the top? Maybe it's talent, maybe it's timing, or maybe there's a room, or in this case, a forest, where those decisions actually get made. Let's go deeper, because the story gets even stranger the further back you look. Some researchers have traced the symbolism at Bohemian Grove back further than 1872. The owl motif, the fire ritual, the emphasis on secrecy and initiation. These echo patterns found in far older elite gathering traditions, some tracing symbolic roots to ancient Babylon, where owl and fire imagery were tied to secret religious and political councils thousands of years before California even existed. Whether that connection is literal or purely symbolic is heavily debated. Historians largely dismiss the ancient continuity theory as speculative folklore dressed up as fact. But the people who defend Bohemian Grove's secrecy never explain why an owl was chosen as the symbol in the first place. And symbolism, especially among powerful, image-conscious people, is rarely accidental. Here's another detail that keeps this story alive. Bohemian Grove reportedly has a strict internal rule. No business deals may be officially discussed on the grounds. It's printed policy. Supposedly a tradition to keep the retreat purely social. But ask any insider how business actually works among the elite, and they'll tell you the real deals rarely happen in a boardroom. They happen over a drink, around a fire, in a moment where nobody's taking notes. So a rule that says no business talk allowed might be the most convenient rule in the world, because it gives everyone plausible deniability while doing exactly the thing the rule claims to forbid. Now here's the part that should really make you sit with this. Every year, roughly 2,500 of the most influential men on the planet gather at this location. Attendees have historically included high-ranking government officials, media executives, defense contractors, and financial power brokers, often before, during, or after they occupied positions that shaped entire nations. Some accounts describe informal talks given at the Grove, casual off-the-record lakeside chats, where future decisions on war, economic policy, or global strategy have allegedly been floated in private, long before the public ever heard a word about them. If even a fraction of that is true, it means major world events may have been quietly shaped, discussed, or agreed upon, not in a government building with cameras and transcripts, but around a campfire, under a 40-foot stone owl, by men who told the public they were simply on a camping trip. And that is the real mystery here. It's not just about celebrities. It's not just about a weird ritual with robes and fire. It's about the possibility that some of the biggest decisions shaping your world were never made in the places you were told to look. So let's bring this back to where we started. Why do celebrities, presidents, and billionaires keep returning to this forest year after year for over 150 years? Maybe it really is just an old-fashioned boys' club with a strange, theatrical tradition. A harmless retreat that's been wildly exaggerated by decades of internet rumor and one viral video. Or maybe, just maybe, Bohemian Grove is exactly what generations of researchers have suspected. A meeting point where fame, fortune, and global influence quietly intersect, hidden in plain sight, disguised as nothing more than a summer camp for grown men. The gate is still locked. The guards are still watching. And every July, the cars still roll in. The only question left is this. If there really is nothing to hide, why, after 150 years, are they still hiding it? If this pulled you in, subscribe, because next time, we're going somewhere even the Grove Zone members are afraid to talk about.